Okay, well, it's time, so we will get started. So welcome to this lecture and welcome to the Institute of World Politics. For those of you who are new to us, I'm Amzana Bosch, the president for IWP. And IWP, the Institute of World Politics, is the premier graduate school on national security, intelligence, and international affairs. We have 7 master's programs, 18 graduate certificates, and as well, we are now officially at these please have a seat. And we are officially accredited for a PhD in national security and statecraft, both in person and online. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our donors, because we would not be here if it was not for our person. If you would like to support IWP, please visit iwp.edu/web. Now, today, we are hearing from a very, very world-renowned war correspondent. Mitzi Perdue will be presenting a lecture titled Ukrainian Courage and Hope. Trauma, Trafficking, Troll Farms, and Tenacity. Ms. Perdue is a seasoned war correspondent. She specializes in reporting on Russian war crimes, including the abduction of children, landmine deployments, and cyber warfare. Actually, since the full scale of the invasion of the Ukraine, she has published over 5,200 columns in outlets such as the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and the Epoch Times. That number alone is just staggering. There's a this is free. There's digits to 4. Well, if it's even 3 digits, it's staggering the amount of publications. Now, her current focus is addressing the mental health crisis caused by the war in Ukraine. In collaboration with American University in Kyiv, she founded the Mental Health Global, which is a nonprofit dedicating to providing free, AI-driven mental health care. This initiative supplements the traditional mental health services in the Ukraine by offering immediate and empathetic support for 24/7 access in Ukrainian, in Russian, and in English. The World Trade Organization estimates currently there are 15 million Ukrainians are suffering from debilitating mental health challenges, including anxiety, depression, insomnia, panic disorders. And this work that she is doing is absolutely critical. I am extremely honored to have you here. And I know that you and your sister, which will be presented to us, Augusta Patron, is one of the earliest supporters of IWP. So with that, it is my extreme pleasure to welcome you back home. So thank you. So please join us at the podium.
Does this come out? Yes. Oh, first of all, what a joy to be here. I love that introduction so much. Thank you. Oh, I mean, my attitude towards you is we are not worthy, we are not worthy. And let's see if I can master this thing. Wish me luck, everybody. It'd be really nice if I could see it. Yes. Okay, I want to bring you back to 1994, and I would particularly like to bring Joan back to 1994, because back then, I got to visit this place. I don't think there were any books in the library, the rugs on the floor. It was just bare because that was right after IWP had gotten this place. And my sister told me, let's visit with my sister a second. My sister, Augusta Patron, told me about how she'd met this fascinating guy at something called the CNP, and I think that's Council on National Policy. And this guy, whose name was John Lenchowski, I hope I'm spelling it right, she told me that we absolutely had to go visit this place that John had told her about and that she was supporting about because she thought this was just one of the wisest, most essential things she had heard. She told me, and I spoke with her yesterday. And I said, I want a quote from you, Augusta, because I'm going to be seeing John. And she said, Lenchowski was so high-minded, so visionary. He saw the need for teaching the arts of statecraft. That is what my sister had to say about you yesterday. So I'm just ecstatic to be back here because in 1994, empty rooms, I mean, it was just kind of bare and cold, and look what it's become. And my sister, I know you had, I'm sure you had many, many backers, but I know that she just was heart and soul a believer in you. And when I told her that I would be addressing an audience here, oh, you cannot even imagine how many points I won with my dear sister over them. Well, why me? How do I get to talk about Ukraine? And the answer is, I am a writer by trade, and one of the publications I regularly write for is, should I speak closer? Is this better, or is this okay? It's fine, okay. They're in public speaking, you're told to eat the mic, and I don't know if I'm eating it or not, but in any case, why me? I write for Psychology Today, and in July of 2022, the full-scale invasion having begun February 2022, I wrote a story about human trafficking, and with particular reference to Ukraine, because the global cartels that are trafficking, for them, Ukraine is just irresistible because any conflict area is irresistible. It's irresistible because there will be so many vulnerable women. I mean, it's just happy hunting grounds for them. So I wrote this article, and then something life-changing happened to me. Because the title of the story had the word Ukraine in it and human trafficking in it, it made its way to the desk of General Andrei Nebikov. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Nebikov. He was the head of the Kyiv Region Police, and he had written his master's thesis on human trafficking. So that's how it happened that my story came to his attention. And he arranged a Zoom call in which, me sitting in Dublin, New Hampshire, visiting my sister Augusta, he invited me to come to Ukraine. He said, if you'll come, you can be our guest for a week, and I'll show you, what... He was kind enough to say that he liked my article, but he said there's so much more. Come and be our guest. So 10 days later, I'm in Kyiv. And it was there's an introduction to Kyiv because as I'm checking into the hotel, everybody who checks in was given a little lecture about how it's really important to have your go bag. And a go bag, according to what was needed in this case, is have any medications you need, have your passport, and if there's an air raid, your job is you don't take the elevator, you run down 5 stairs deep into the basement, because that's where the bomb shelter is. And I'm listening to this and not believing it. Except that night, there was an air raid. So my first night in Ukraine was spent in a bomb shelter. And anyway, that's why me, Ukraine. Let's get on to human trafficking. And I want to keep an eye on the time because I really want to stop at exactly the right time. Human trafficking. What you're looking at here is it's the border between Poland and Ukraine, Medvika. And I have to assume that the waits aren't as long now as they were back then. But there, you could easily be, I mean, I've been through this, 4 or 5 hours waiting to cross. And while I was waiting to cross, this is going out, I happened to be standing beside some American military people. And I'd love to know what they were doing there, but I don't know. But in any case, they told me to notice something that would have gone right over my head if they hadn't had pointed it out. And there were, these crowds and crowds of people, long waits moving so slowly. There were like 2 or 3, occasionally 2 men, occasionally 3, but you'd see these groups of 2 or 3 men as you're walking along. I mean, they'd be in the side and they weren't walking. And one of them had a cell phone, and it looked as if he's taking selfies. But as was pointed out by the American military guy, notice the angle of the cell phone, this being the cell phone. They're not taking pictures, it's not selfies. They are spotters. And what they're doing there is they are taking pictures of women who will be the most vulnerable. You don't want to waste your time. Say the spotter will transmit the picture. Say it's a girl in a yellow blouse. All right, the girl in the yellow blouse, her picture is going to be transmitted to somebody on the other side, and the person on the other side is perfectly likely to be a kindly-looking older man who will tell her, "You look as if you could use a hot meal, maybe a place to stay, and I can help find you a job. But the van leaves in 5 minutes, so get in right now." Well, the girl, very typically, she will have been spotted because she'll have what I'm told is the 100-yard stare, which is you're just out of it. You're so tired, you're so exhausted, you're so afraid. You've lost all your earthly possessions. You're worrying that your husband might be dead by now. You don't speak the language of the country you're going to. You don't know where you're going to find a place to eat. You're just distraught. That's what the spotter is looking for, because you will be vulnerable. And well, we're all adults, so I can tell you some more that I learned there. And I learned this from police there. In Ukraine, there are quite a few police who their focus is anti-trafficking. And I learned that it would be very typical for that girl in the yellow blouse. She gets in the van. She's taken to some attic somewhere and she's raped 40 times. And I asked, why would they do that? And the answer I heard was they want to just destroy her soul so that there's nothing left of her. She's just a shell and she'll just do anything you want. And the policeman told me that the odds of her being rescued are 1 in 100. So, I mean, this is a really ghastly, horrible situation. How many does this happen to? Well, I talked with a guy, Andrea Salvoni, from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. He told me nobody knows how many women have been trafficked, but he said that, I mentioned that I had heard that it had been 500,000, and he said nobody knows, but he said that's a number that could be defended. 500,000 people going through what I've just described? The horrors of war, there's so many aspects of how horrible it is. Oh, and we are not moving on to happier subjects. As long as I was the guest of the Ukrainian police, I got to see some of what they were up against. And what you're looking at right now is a police station. It's on the border of Belarus. Can I pronounce it right? Belarus? I learned that in the following case, the Russians have, I think it's 9, somebody count it for me, but since the Russian Revolution, since the Russian Federation was founded, that I know of, there are only 4 years where they haven't been attacking somebody. It is their MO. And they have almost a playbook in which one of the first things they do, and again, I'm told this by the police, and I believe it to be true, one of the first things they do when they attack a country is they go after the police. They have a murder list, and they'll murder any of the police that they possibly can. They'll also bomb any of the buildings. They'll steal the cars or destroy them. And then something, again, how do you even process the amount of horror? But one of the things that they particularly go after is the databases. It's because the police have extensive databases, and when it's in the Russian hands, I mean, God knows what they do with it, but we don't like it. So as a guest of the police, I began learning about some of the things that go on. And what we're looking at right now is in Chernobyl. And this is on the subject, continuing on the subject of what the police do. Chernobyl, there's 1,000 square mile exclusion zone. And this exclusion zone, they want people not to go in because some of the stuff is just highly, highly irradiated. And the job of the police in the Chernobyl region was to keep poachers out. Now, why do they want to keep poachers out? Because there's millions and millions of pounds in that 1,000 square mile area of metals that are just magnets for radiation. And actually everything there is in danger, but there are hot spots. And the poachers will come take metal from places like this, and they'll sell it on the global market. And so somebody in Japan has a doorknob that was made of scrap metal from Chernobyl, and that person, it won't happen instantly, but they'll, at some point they're going to start losing their hair and die a painful death, because that's what happened, or that is the kind of thing that happens when the Russians destroyed the ability of the Chernobyl police to keep poachers out. They destroyed all the records, all the buildings, and they stole all the cars. And I've talked with the police there who say, we know what's going on and we can't do anything about it because we had 18 cars. We have nothing now. I mean, we can go around on a bicycle trying to keep the poachers out. Landmines. One of the functions of the police, there are various organizations that deal with landmines. The police are one of them. If there are charitable groups like Halo that will do mine clearance on a very large scale. But what the police will do when a town is being liberated is, so that the soldiers don't have to go looking for landmines, they do it. So a big function of the police is landmines. And I learned this because after Chernobyl, we're in Bucha now, and I'm seeing some of the prettiest, cutest, adorable playgrounds. I mean, they're like the best of Disney, but only better. Not cheesy in any way, but just great, something that I wish for this country, but no kids. And I was noticing that day that we passed many beautiful playgrounds, and having grandchildren, they attract my attention, no kids in them. So I asked Irina, the policewoman who's accompanying me, how come no kids? And she said, because the Russians, this being, we're still in 2022, and I assume it's been improved since then, but at this point, the Russians would deliberately target playgrounds. And what you're looking at here, see if you can see it. Does everybody see the landmine? Because if you don't, here it is. And I'm going to pass out some, get everybody worried. Particularly, no, but I'm about to distribute just so that you can see what it's like. Before you take it, let me tell you, don't shake it because this is what I have. What I have here is, this is a model of a landmine that's used in schools that teach people in the demining schools. They have plastic copies of everything, but it's really quite realistic. And I've got a couple so that. But But Irina was explaining to me something. Tell me if this isn't just unusually horrendous. The landmine, the kind that you're seeing, they have it in different colors depending on the time of year. And if it's in a playground and, there are leaves over it a few hours later, the kids don't see it. But the 40 grams of liquid explosive inside, I'm told, are very deliberately calibrated so that a child steps on it, it will go off, but it won't kill the child. It will, how about permanently maim them, like they'll lose a foot. And the point of that is, first of all, it's demoralizing, but second, one of the parents is going to be out of commission for years taking care of the child, and that means not fighting or not working in a factory, harming the economy and stretching the ability, the medical system. I mean, I was about to say, can you get more evil? But I'm going to answer it. You can get more evil. That looks really cool, right? It's something that you could find in schools when they were reopening. It's a cell phone. But it's an old cell phone. Somebody tell me what this is. Who said it? Yes. Explain what plastique does.
It's a malleable substance
that you can make into many different shapes, some to look like toys, and with an igniter it will explode.
And that was the purpose of this. They stopped doing it after people caught on and learned don't ever open a cell phone that you find. But whoever opens one that has the plastique in it, it's wired so that actually you're not opening it. You're clicking a button to speak or something, and it'll kill you. And evil, but let's get some more evilness. What you're looking at here is one of their ways of planting landmines. One of the things that they've done just on an extraordinary, a really industrial scale, is planting landmines in prime agricultural areas. And the information I'm about to give you is a year old, but I'm going to move on to another one. The information I'm giving you is probably a year old, but a year ago, estimates were that 70% of Ukraine's prime agricultural land has been mined and is unusable. And the purpose of that is to destroy the economy, to make it impossible for farmers to have a living, even to put pressure on Ukraine in the West, because when you take out that much grain, it means starving people. And, and what I'm about to, what I wanted to show you, let me see if I can go back. Oh, can somebody help me with this? We're trying to, so we go back and there's a little arrow here. And if we can't get it, I'll describe it. Well, I will describe it. What I was going to show you was rows and rows and rows of, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but zemlodiljes. These are trucks. They're about, imagine a very large Volkswagen bus, maybe a little larger, a little smaller than a regular school bus, but in the back of there is 60 rocket tubes, and inside each of the 60 rocket tubes are landmines. And depending on the size that they're using, you can have one rocket tube hold 100 of them. And the person operating this, he dials in, he's been told by somebody in probably St. Petersburg or Moscow, which prime agricultural land to aim it at. And he can, what's 60 times 6? Oh, I guess we're talking 6,000? That means 6,000 landmines are sprayed across an area, but then he has a backup one where he can double the amount that he sent. But then there are all these other Zemladilas just every single day spraying the economic background of Ukraine by destroying agricultural land. Absolutely horrendous. And I want to talk a little bit about something else that the police are responsible for, and that is bot farms. Does everybody know what a bot farm is? And I won't embarrass people by asking you to say if you don't know, but I'll tell you. BOT stands for robot. And robot is, they have these places where they can robotically or programmatically send out fake emails. And while I was there, I talked with a guy who told me about like just one bot farm. It's one that they discovered rather quickly. It was in a suburb, well, not quite suburb, it was probably 30 miles outside of Kyiv. But this bot farm that they discovered had 3,000 SIM cards. Now, why is a bot farm want SIM cards? Because each SIM card, you can sign up, when you're signing up for like Facebook or just any social media, they want you to have a phone number. So each of the SIM cards means that they have that they can open 3,000 accounts. And with these 3,000 accounts, they send out 500 fake emails a day. And he was telling me that one of the things, they shut this one down rather quickly, but one of the things that he was telling me, I mean, it's a vast array of things, but this one stuck in my mind. They have SIM cards that make it look as if like you're a school official or a government official. And absolutely regularly, like several times a day, they will send in, possibly from several sources, saying, your school is about to be bombed. And so the principal has to have everybody leave until the bomb-sniffing dogs show that it's not there. But they'll do this with theaters, with grocery stores, with government offices. And the policeman who was telling me the story said, can you imagine how just unnerving it is? You're trying to study for a physics exam or whatever, and you all have to leave because you might be blown up. Or you're trying to run your factory and the widgets are being made and you have to leave. It's just a diabolical way of making everybody unsettled. I want to talk, Dr. Glancy isn't here, is he? Oh, good. I'm not good that he's not here, but then if I don't get it exactly right. The kind of things that the bot farms are sending out, there are three elements of disinformation, and every word that I'm about to say does come from David Glancy. There are three elements of misinformation that make it believable, and I happen to be a personal adjacent to some of the harm it does, because there's a woman who works for my sister. She's a cateress. She's also a born-again Christian. And she has an absolute deep belief that we should do everything we can to stop any kind of support going to Ukraine, because, according to her, Zelensky is deeply anti-Christian. He's persecuting Christians. He's shutting down the churches, and she deeply believes all of this. Well, the three elements of disinformation, I'm going to share with them. I learned it from Dr. Glancy, but how it plays out in the case of Sally Smith, not her real name. For disinformation to really work, the three elements are, it's got to have some element of truth, something that makes you inclined to believe it. And Sally Smith knows that churches have been shut. The truth is, Zelensky did shut down some Russian ones that were like spy operations, but most of the churches are doing just fine. And I bet I've been in 14 or 15 of them, and they're powerful. They're vibrant. They're not shut down, but she won't believe that. The next element of disinformation of the three elements is it has to have some element to be really effective that you kind of want to believe in it. In the case of Susan Smith, Susan was just totally enraptured by the part that Putin is, by opposing Ukraine, he's against all these horrible things in her view of like, I don't know, that the West is kind of hedonistic and that we've lost our moral values, and while Putin and Russia are the guardians of them. And she's kind of, this is appealing to her. And then the third element is that there will be the payload of the whole thing, which is, in this case, that Zelensky is persecuting Christians and just don't support him. But there's one other aspect of this, which is, again, according to Professor Lancy, there's the first mover advantage when you're putting out disinformation. What you hear first, it's sort of almost, if it's believable to you, it becomes almost part of your identity, and you hear something contradicting it. And, for some people, they're open to changing their minds, but for most people, the first mover advantage is, you're not going to believe it. And like Susan, I'm pretty close to her. I've known her probably 12 years. She's absolutely, completely convinced that I'm the one with misinformation, that Zelensky's really a terrible person. And anything that she reads or hears that contradicts that, she's not going to change her mind because she trusts her sources. There we are. And here's the policeman that I talked to, whose job is monitoring misinformation. He told me that he can see, since he's monitoring it, he can see what's coming out of St. Petersburg, and then he sees it reflected in the American press. And here's some of them. That Ukraine is a failed state. There's just no point helping it in any way because it's a failed state. That this is a forever war. That the money we send is wasted. And additional support risks a nuclear response. I'm going to ask a question that doesn't really have an answer, but I'd sort of be interested to hear what people think. Somebody throw out a number of how many troll farms there are.
1,000.
1,000? Okay, it's unknowable. At least in the West, we can't know. But I've heard people who study this who say that they could defend the number 10,000. And these can be like a 2 or 3 man operation like the one outside of Kyiv, or it can be there's one in St. Petersburg that has 1,000 that we know of. And a lot of the employees, they're not all PhDs, many of them are PhDs in psychology, and they study the West and they know what our vulnerabilities are. And gosh, I wish we could do more to oppose that. Well, after my first visit, you were puzzling. I can see on the faces of some of you, what does the Atocha ring have to do with Ukraine? And here's the answer. When I left Ukraine the first time, I really, really wanted to do something to help Ukraine. But in my case, it's awfully hard for me to put my hands on cash because either I've already committed it to someplace or it's in a trust that I can't touch. But I did have something that was of value, and I thought, I can auction it. I can convert. By the way, this is going to be relevant to all of you in a bit. I thought I could convert tangible property into cash by auctioning it. And I auctioned this at Sotheby's at Christmas time, and it went for $1.2 million, all of which has gone to Ukraine. And one of the things that I did with it is I knew that a lot of crime, a lot of smuggling, particularly arms smuggling, but also human trafficking, happens on rivers. To use a phrase that's not common in this country, but I hear it overseas, Ukraine is a highly rivered country, which means that a lot of stuff can go on in the country, illegal stuff. And the Ukrainian police had 5 riverboats, all of which were confiscated, which meant that all the crime in the world that happens on rivers, there was just no way of opposing it. So I used part of the money from the sale of my ring to have in Ukraine, keeping a shipyard with some work, to restore the 5 missing boats, but to make them better, more horsepower, just make them better. And since I was the one who had put up the money for this, I got to name them. And I named them after 5 foreign fighters from 5 different countries who had given their lives for Ukraine. And because I'm a journalist, it was easy for me to interview the people, like the parents of a guy from Tokyo, or, Australia, Netherlands, France, the US. And I wrote tribute booklets for all of them, where the parents would tell why they were so proud of their son for giving his life for freedom. And the Ukrainians had a great big ceremony for this, for the launching of the 5 boats. And the Ukrainian government, as far as I can tell, went all out to get the global media to cover this, because I don't know how many reporters were there, but just eyeballing it, I could guess 50, and they all were interviewing me. Many of them were interviewing me afterwards, and it did get total global publicity, including the tribute booklets, like the one that I wrote for the guy from Tokyo. Boy, that was in the Tokyo papers, and same for the rest. I was so happy that that the ring had done this. However, when I wanted to go back again, had 3 different sources tell me, don't go, you're on the murder list. And one was Marek, and I don't dare pronounce his not belong. I always get it wrong. Would you say it, please?
Chodakevich.
Hodakevich. Oh, now I know. Okay, Hodakevich. Marek was one of the ones who told me, don't go, you're on the murder list. But I also had a retired CIA person, and then one that's mysterious to me, but I once met a guy from China in Shenzhen, and we kept each other's cards. And one day he called me up, kind of mysterious guy, I don't really know who he is even, but he called me up and said, don't go, you're on the murder list. So I have 3 different sources, and I didn't take it seriously. And I didn't for the following reason. My guess was that the Kremlin probably has 500,000 people that they're mad at, and I'm probably really low on the totem pole. So I went. However, how many people are from Poland here? 1, 2, 3. I did go back to Ukraine. Nothing happened. All's well. And I'm in the middle of thinking, boy, was that ever a false alarm? I go to Warsaw, and the Warsaw Airport Marriott. That's a date that I'm not going to soon forget, personally. I check in at the hotel, and I'm heading towards the elevator, and I see a man and a woman. He's quite tall. She has long blonde hair, kind of pretty. And is the word spidey sense familiar to everybody? For those who didn't raise your hand, that's Spider-Man sense. Spider-Man, supposedly, when he was in danger, he'd get this feeling at the back of his neck telling them something's wrong. Okay, I didn't believe in it until I personally experienced it. I'm heading towards the elevator, and I see these 2 people, and I can't identify anything wrong with them, but my Spidey sense said, don't get in the elevator with them. So I looked at my watch. I pretended I'd forgotten something, and I walked away, and I wandered around the lobby for half an hour, and I came back to where the elevator was. They're gone. I think, oh boy, I get on. And on the second floor, they get on. And what I'm about to describe, I don't remember, but I've still got I had the injection mark. It lasted a couple of months. There's a group called Bellingcat that, among other things that they do, they keep track of journalists who've had what I'm about to describe happen to them. They have 100. So the MO is, Jim, will you stand up a second? You don't have to do anything other than allow me to illustrate. Okay, one person is here, and you're the bad guy. No, let's say that you're the good guy. You're me, and like bump up against you, and at the same time, okay, you can sit because you've now illustrated it. Thank you very much. The person on the other side, one is bumping you, and the other injects you, and because when you're afraid of being off balance, you just don't record what happened. But however, this is an MO. Well, I get off on the 4th floor, and at that point, I'm unaware of anything happening. I go to my room, 407, and obey me. Nothing happens immediately. And now here's another thing where my memory is a little bit distorted, because it's very hard for me to figure out the timeline on this. Was it 5 minutes or was it 3 hours? I don't know. But sometime after I entered the room, I began wheezing. And I don't normally wheeze. That's not, as possibly as if I'd been allergic to something, but I had no known allergies. And, at first I'm thinking, this is really weird and strange and I don't like it. And I think it's at that point that I texted Marek saying something like, help, can't breathe, room 407, airport, Marion. And quite shortly after that, by the way, I'm going downhill really rapidly at this point. It was as if a python was squeezing me. And so taking a deep breath was impossible. And then this terrible, terrible wheezing. And whatever Marek did, I guess Marek called the front desk. And again, I learned this after the fact. I was really lucky because the airport ambulance was in the driveway of the hotel. And 3 people came to my room. Somebody from the hotel opened the door, and the 2 EMTs, they didn't speak English and I don't speak Polish, so I couldn't explain anything, but I didn't need to because they didn't have a word to say to me. They just flew across the room and smashed an oxygen mask over my face, and didn't do any good. The room's going black. All I can do is barely see faces, and how about it's really pleasant not to be able to breathe. Well, there were 2 of them, the AMTs, and one of them grabbed my wrist and plunged I'm in retrospect, I think it's probably epinephrine. I think they thought I was having anaphylactic shock. No impact whatsoever. The breathing is becoming shallower and shallower, and I'm going downhill real fast. They do it again. No impact. And one of them is listening to my chest, and one of them is, actually the same guy is watching the oximeter, and I'm really not good at reading faces, but even I could see that, as well as feel that they're taking it. How about crisis? The 2 epinephrines didn't work, and then I see them rummage in their medical bag, and I don't know if atropine is what they used on me, but here's what I do know, that the drug cartels, I'm keeping an eye on the time, the drug cartels in Russia and in Poland are really mad at each other, and they have a turf war going on, the result of which is that all the EMTs have atropine in their kits because the favored drug for knocking people out if you're a drug lord is Novichok. Oh, Novichok is, unless you're at Walter Reed or something, you can't detect it. It's designed to, within a very short time, just to fall apart and be undetectable. The third injection that they gave me, and again, I'm a trained journalist, and so part of me is thinking, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, and part of it is thinking, I really want to watch what's going on. And I swear to you that the faces, my vision had just narrowed to all I could do was see faces. But it worked, and again, don't hold me to time because time just dilates. But it felt as if the third injection, subjectively, it felt like 60 seconds before I could breathe again. And I remember thinking, this is the most glorious feeling in the whole world, to be able to take a whole breath. And maybe it was 5 minutes, maybe it was 1 minute, but it happened. Well, it worked in that I could breathe again. But I stayed in that hotel room for the next 5 days, sleeping 19 hours a day. And I was so sick that, normally it would be fun to stay in a hotel room and watch movies or read books. I couldn't do it. The only thing that I could master was I could watch in my wristwatch what my pulse was. And that was the only thing that I could do for 5 days because I was just too sick. Except I did notice that I had this great big injection mark. And I was trying to think, I'm not being suspicious of injections at that point. I was trying to think, could a bee sting have stung through pantyhose and trousers and a tunic? No, it couldn't. What is this thing? Well, and just a minute, I want to check the time again because I really don't want to go over it. We're okay. I did make my way home 5 days later, and doctors were really interested that, one of my lungs wasn't working right. I was in danger. My teeth were so inflamed, my gums were so inflamed that they said, you're going to lose all your teeth. And some heart issues. Oh, it was not fun. However, quite rapidly the inflammation went down, and I only lost one tooth. And it was a funny experience because then the doctor's saying, well, you're going to lose a tooth. And I'm thinking, oh, wonderful. And he's thinking I'm nuts. But and I understand, but my reaction is I could have lost all of them. But to move on, while I was lying in bed and too sick to read or write or do anything, I began remembering a conversation that I had with this lady. Her name's Daria. She's 14 years old, and she's one of the people that I interviewed in the police station. And her story is that she was in Bucha. It was a few days after Bucha had been invaded. And she and her mother and stepfather and grandfather were visiting her grandmother. As they were leaving, they're in their car. There was a column of soldiers going by. And the father, not wanting to aggravate the soldiers, tried to pull the car into the driveway, and then she has no understanding of why they did this. They just sprayed the car, and she watched her father die instantly. Her mother bled out in front of her eyes, and her grandfather died. She herself was on fire and shot in the hip, and she's telling me this story in a way that it's like a monotone, like she was talking like this, as if without emotion. And sometimes she'd even describe it as if it was happening to somebody else. Well, I write for Psychology Today, and I know that that's disassociation. And the typical, what you would expect for somebody who doesn't get help of some sort, they're going to self-medicate with drugs or alcohol and have a problem even worse. So after she left the room where I was interviewing her, I asked Irina, the policewoman who was accompanying me, is she going to get help of some sort? And the answer was, no. We're a country at war. We have 1/300th of the number of psychologists that you do in the U.S. In proportion to population. She's on her own. Yeah, she's an orphan and she's on her own. So I started thinking, I have a little bit of a background in an endless fascination and love of anything to do with artificial intelligence. And as a regular ChatGPT user, I know that ChatGPT can give you all sorts of really helpful advice almost as if it's talking to you. And I started wondering, might it be possible that for somebody who's having mental stress issues, might a large language model help? And especially, what if it were tuned by Ukrainian psychologists so that it would be culturally appropriate and information that they endorse? Because the problem with ChatGPT is you can't know that it'll be right, but if you have something tuned exactly for your audience, you can get it right. Well, I mentioned this to General Petraeus, and he's had 2.5 million people under his command, and he's very aware of PTSD, and he knew the figures from the World Health Organization that 15 million people in Ukraine have mental health issues big enough so that it's hard to hold a job or maintain an intimate relationship. So he was aware of the problem. He helped is right now at $600,000, most of it raised by him, and is gone to a program right now at American University Kyiv. They have two Ukrainian psychologists or therapists or experts in any case, and two IT people, and they expect to roll it out in a trial period with a few people, and then eventually it's very scalable. And I don't want you to read this too closely, but this is sort of a mock-up of what the information will. You don't have an app, you just go to the web to get advice, and it will be personalized the way ChatGPT would, except it's far better. And I want to raise money for this. And my approach to doing it is, again, checking the time. Yes. Oh. I was able to raise $1.2 million with the ring by an auction. I've learned a lot about the publicity, about how to do it. And I happen to own 12 dinner plates that belonged to Tsar Alexander, the Tsar liberator. They were given to him by his father. I think it's in 1818. It was for his 21st birthday. I'm not sure I've got the figures right, but there are 14 of them in the world. 2 of them are in the Hermitage, and I own 12. And I'm thinking that there ought to be a lot of collectors who would like something that historic. So I'm going to auction it in October, and now we get to how this relates to IWP. Obey me. Oh, thank you. Oh, here's another one that's been put up. A 69-carat ruby from a guy. And the way the auction works is whatever your cause is, if it's an item worth more than $1 million and it has a story, we will accept you into the auction, and you get 80% of it, or whoever chooses to donate, and then I, for putting it together, get 20% for mental health. And it's a way to support a charity. And advantages, supposing you donate an item of $1 million or more, sell it at the October auction, IWP or whatever charity gets 80% of the sale price, and global publicity for the cause. And this matters because it helps get, when you have something that's global, and I have, from my ring, I know that there are at least 1,400 articles written about it. And I think this is more attention-getting than a ring. I hope I'm right. Or actually, the people I'm working with, it says yes, way more. And part of the allure of it is, this is money that's from the cultural patriarchy. No, patrimony. It's the global It's the patrimony of Russia. Whoever buys it, they're going to be supporting Ukraine. So that's kind of a kicker that I've heard people in major newspapers say, "Oh yeah, that's wrong with that story," but any of the ones who are allowed into this auction will get global publicity. That there are already public relations firms lined up to help publicize it, the way they did for my ring. And whoever does it gets a significant tax deduction. And now I have given you all a little tiny inexpensive gift. And it was for a reason. Oh, you all got one. And the purpose of it is you keep it, but write for me if you have any ideas to help this auction along. Like if you know, maybe IWP would be first choice, but if you know people in the board of others who would see a benefit of getting absolutely global publicity for their cause with the expectation that that will release still more money as people hear about it who might not have heard about it, because there will be articles all over the world telling about where this money goes. So write a suggestion, please, tear it off, give it to me, and keep the little present. And that is, ladies and gentlemen,
My goodness, if that has not left you speechless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your kindness, your humanity, your passion, your inspiration. And also, unfortunately, thank you for reminding us of what evil is and how fortunate we are in this blessed country, the United States, to live in a place where we are free. And it is our obligation to help anyone who is not free and is fighting for freedom. So thank you for being an example of that. I'd like to present you with our IWP coin. Thank you.
oh, I love this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you.
So I promised to end report so that you all get out on time. I think we did good. Well, we're handy on time.
Well, and also thank you to the audience. Thank you for participating with those hard questions. And if you'd like to find out more about IWP, then please visit iwp.edu. Thank you, and I think we can still just two minutes and 10 seconds more for questions afterwards. Thank you. Okay, or unless you'd still like to, yes.
You mentioned evil. What causes evil? Why would people want to do things?
What is that?
Okay, this is something that I wrestle with almost daily, and I almost wonder, are we wired that way, or it actually? I'm not a strong Christian, but I'm getting stronger because I think if there's that much evil, then I would be on the side of the good. Do you have an answer? I'd love it if you do.
It's got to be mechanical because you can't do that rationally. And as to you have to be insanity, the things you mentioned.
I want to know what the.
It's cool behind some of the stuff you're talking about.
Oh yeah, but what kind of man figures out how to have the Zemlya thing, which is ruining people's livelihoods, destroying the economy?
They're having whoever's designing this is fun, right?
Well, I have a definition of good and evil. How did you get so lucky? You're going to learn the nature of good and evil. Good is that which is energized like a battery by healing, growth, enlightenment. Evil is that which is just strengthened by causing pain, misery, and darkening. And now, we've got, I think it's 30 seconds. And I'm not going to go over 30 seconds.
Once again, thank you, and reminds us that to keep the Ukrainians and the country of Ukraine in our thoughts and in our prayers. And history keeps repeating itself.
We've got 15 seconds later, and I'm going to end it on the following. Talk with me afterwards, because I'm eager to talk. 12 seconds. If somebody, like a board member or a supporter of IWP, wants to contribute something, you get 90%, not 80%. And with that, I will end. Thank you all, everybody.